Well, conference. What an exciting weekend it's been. There's been ups, there's been downs, but I think above all, actually, this has been the most fantastic conference this party has ever put on. And we need to, each and every one of us, thank Steve Crowther and Lisa and the team for all the work that they've done. It's been absolutely amazing what's happened over the last 2 days. Now, we've already had some good news today. We've had the news about Neil joining the campaign team. That is fantastic news. His experience as a minister will be excellent and will be really useful to us going forward. I've got some more good news for you. So if you bear with me, we've got a few announcements to make. The first thing I'd like to do, though, is to thank each and every one of you in this room and at home, members of the party, because without you, we couldn't be where we are today. We couldn't be fighting and winning these campaigns. We couldn't be changing British politics. And that's what we are doing. We are changing the very nature of politics in this country. So I thank each and every one of you. Now, on May 2nd, we did cause an earthquake. You caused an earthquake. We had elected 147 county councillors. Remembering these people are just one step below being an MP, and were instantly thrust into those roles. And ever since then, we've had success piled upon success. One of the big things, and I've got a confession to make, one of the big things isn't the 147 seats we won, it's the strategy we tried to set up. And ladies and gentlemen, you messed up my strategy. And it's all your fault. The strategy wasn't to win seats this year. The strategy was to build the platform for the big win we're expecting next year. So I was expecting 800 second places. That was the plan, and you messed it up. But just think what we can achieve. We've got now over 235 councillors and more coming to the party every day at district and county level. We are really making a huge difference. And so, next year, the plan was to win 500 to 800 seats. But who knows what you're actually going to deliver next year. So let's look forward to those exceptional times coming ahead. Now, for today, my main role is to make a couple of announcements. And the first person I'd like to bring up on the stage to put in front of you is UKIP's newest councillor. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may introduce, he won the Canterbury City Council seat this Thursday in Sea Salt Awards. Not just a win, but he took a former Conservative seat by a huge UKIP majority. Ladies and gentlemen, can I welcome Councillor Mike Ball.
Yes, just to say a few words. It was an amazing win. We did fight the same by-election in May last year because the Conservative candidate resigned to emigrate to Australia. And so we put up a candidate, and we hadn't done a lot, to be honest. We hadn't done any canvassing, we hadn't done a leaflet drop. Sadly to say, we'd done very little, and the Tories pipped us by 87 votes. And now this by-election came up because, sadly, a Conservative councillor died. So I decided to stand. I was asked to stand, and I said, yes, I'd be delighted to stand. And so I did. But we put a lot of work and effort into this one. And I have to thank my team and my chairman, the Canterbury chairman, Jim Gascoigne. His energy was absolutely amazing. His tireless enthusiasm canvassed Jim's organisational skills. He organised leaflet drops, wrote a personal letter to all the 800 postal voters, postal ballot voters. We did canvassing, and we did a second leaflet drop. And again, the support of the team, the chaps on the ground, the foot sloggers who went out in all weathers. And it was the team that got me elected. So I'm sharing the glory, I'm enjoying the glory, but it's the team who put me there. And thank you very much. Thank you.
So that's Mike Bull, Councillor Bull, UKIP's newest councillor. And Mike joins another councillor who came across to UKIP last week. He's not with us today because he's out working hard in his area, but he's come and joined us from the Labour Party. And so I'd like to use this opportunity to thank Councillor Bob Douglas, who's a councillor in Barking and Dagenham Borough Council. He was a Labour councillor for 12 years, a man of huge experience and a long-standing career. And he's chosen to come and join UKIP because he recognises that we are the political future, not just for people who have voted Conservative in the past, but for those who have voted Labour or not voted at all. UKIP is the future, and his decision to come and join us is a clear sign of what's going ahead. So could we have a round of applause for Councillor Douglas, who joined UKIP last week. Now, I do have some bad news for Mike. I'm really sorry, Mike. Mike was our newest councillor, but it wasn't long-standing because as of 2 minutes ago, and he's not with us today because he's now doing his press launch up in Stockton-on-Tees Borough Council and with his media team up there, but I can announce to you the fresh news that Councillor Mark Chatburn is joining UKIP at this moment. He's a Conservative councillor in Stockton-on-Tees Borough Council representing the Yarm and Kirk Livington ward, and today he leads the Conservative Party and joins UKIP. And his role as UKIP's newest councillor, I'm afraid for Mark, is even more short-lived. because I have with us today, she's come and joined us, an announcement to make to you. All the way from Bracknell Forest, we have two councillors joining us today. One is Michael Sargent. He was a Conservative councillor for the Bulbrook ward in Bracknell Forest Council, and today he joins UKIP. And the second one, again from Bracknell Forest, and she is with us here to come and speak to you, is former Mayor of Bracknell and Bracknell Forest Councillor, Councillor Sheila Pyle.
Thank you so much for your warm welcome. It is lovely to be with you. I thought I was the newest because I resigned from the Conservative Party on Thursday morning. It wasn't a quick thing to do. I thought long and hard about it because, like many of you, we're Conservatives at heart. We believe in our country, we believe in our nation, we believe in all those things that have served us so well for so many hundreds of years. And I believe, I don't care what other countries say, we might be a small island, but we are a great nation, and that's what we're going to do. So I look forward to working with you And Michael sends his apologies and his warm regards to all of you, but unfortunately he couldn't be with us today. But I don't think that'll be the last you'll see of us. So thank you all.
And where Councillor Pyle and the other new recruits to UKIP today have trod, we expect to make more and more announcements next week and over the coming weeks of councillors leaving the old, tired parties and joining the fresh force that is UKIP. We are taking this march forward, and we are going to take them on in the town council chambers. We are going to take them on in the district and county halls, and we are going to take them on in Westminster. And what's more is we aren't just an effective campaigning and electioneering team. We aren't just right on principle and honesty and integrity, but actually UKIP councillors, because of their principle and because of their integrity and because they're the hardest working councillors I've seen in any council chamber and in any community, these people are making a huge difference to the communities that they are very pleased to serve. And I'm going to give you a glimpse just at a few of the many groups we have around the country now by bringing up some of the group leaders just to give you a very quick flavour of what it is their councils have achieved on the ground. Long ago are the days when they said we were a single issue party. I remember very clearly my first day at the county council when the first speech they made was, "What on earth are you doing here? You're UKIP. You want to get this country out of the EU, not come and save us in the town halls." And I informed them, we are more relevant in a council chamber than in any parliamentary building in the world. And we will be more relevant in Westminster than any other party in this country because we're the only party fighting for it. Now, if I may introduce our first group leader from Cornwall County Council, Councillor Steph McWilliam.
Good afternoon, conference. I know there's an awful lot to fit in. There's so much I could say about this, but I know Pete's going to be very relieved if I keep it brief. First of all, to all of you who have stood in election after election at different levels and not won, keep going. The feeling when you win is fantastic. And very quickly followed by a feeling of great humility that people have put their trust in me and I need to deliver. It's not been very long, and the first few weeks were busy learning our way around and what we could and couldn't do. But I'm quite proud of what we've achieved already. I'm immensely proud of the other Cornwall councillors who are getting stuck in, who are working for their constituents, for their residents. Far too many to list in a very brief few moments here. But I do particularly want to pay tribute to Viv. 83, had his retirement rudely interrupted when he agreed to stand as a democracy candidate and actually was elected where a neighbouring UKIP candidate who worked his socks off wasn't. So the vagaries of democracy. Cornwall Council has an office in Brussels. Most of the Cornwall councillors didn't know that, even the ones in the previous administration. Well, they do now. We've worked with local residents to get wind turbine applications referred to committee and then refused. Admittedly, I chaired a meeting of neighbouring parish councillors and got our MP to attend to make it very clear to her the views, she's Conservative by the way, the views of the local parish councils that they'd quite like to see localism mean what it says, and it doesn't appear to be happening. And also working with a neighbouring councillor to challenge the developers and get them to come back to site to sort out a solar farm that they were told there would be no noise issue, so there's no noise condition. Well, there is a noise issue, and now they're having to fix it. In so many ways, It is tremendously rewarding, very, very satisfying. But as I say, more than anything else, it's an honour to be elected on the UKIP ticket, and I'm very proud to be a councillor. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next group leader is from East Lindsey District Council, and it is Councillor Victoria Ayling.
Well, thank you, everybody, and it is a privilege to be here. I started in the Conservatives, a great fan of Margaret Thatcher, and became very disillusioned, even stood for Parliament for them. He reneged on the Lisbon Treaty, Cameron did, and he lost the general election. Could no longer work with a man like that. Anyway, as an East Lindsey District Councillor, I walked the floor to UKIP in March this year, and I'm proud to say stood for the Lincolnshire County Council elections and won it for UKIP. And again... I have to say, standing for council's no easy task, I warn you, especially when you're in a new aspiring party like UKIP, and you need a great team. And I want to personally thank my partner Kevin, who's sitting in the audience here, because they have the brunt of a lot of the leafleting. Anyway, when it comes to actually standing on the doorstep, a lot of people say, what can you do as a local councillor when you're not in one of the main parties? Actually, there's a lot you can do. I know Pete has done brilliantly by leading his council. However, you don't have to lead and have the majority to do effective work. Let's give an example in East Lindsey. How many of you have travellers' sites where you live? Yes? Do you love them? Now, as you know, the problem is with travellers' sites, we're obliged by Europe to provide provision for travellers, and if we don't in our local authorities or have a policy for it, they can buy a field and you can't really do much about it under the planning rules. So apparently we have to have designated sites. In my own ward, which incidentally is East Lindsey, run by a Liberal and Conservative coalition, they wring their hands and say, we've got to have 9 in Lincolnshire, for example. Nobody does anything because they wring their hands and say, we've got to provide these. The residents don't want them because from personal experience, they have suffered at the hands of people who steal, people who leave a load of mess afterwards. Now, I'm not saying all travellers, but these particular groups have been causing problems. As a local councillor, I felt, as a UKIP councillor who is not whipped or run by Cameron, or anybody else that puts themselves and their parties first, it's the residents that count. So, public meeting Tuesday, making a huge fuss about it, alerting the residents why they have to put up with this, because of our European masters and political elite who really don't care about the country, putting Europe and their ambitions first. As UKIP councillors, we can show them there is a choice. They have. They can vote for UKIP on the ground at all levels and actually have somebody representing them who will put them and the country first. If we do it right, we're going to win in Westminster as well. So that's what I wanted to say about being an East Lindsey District Councillor tonight.
And next, ladies and gentlemen, if I may, one of our new group leaders, who was elected in May, is Colin Mayer from Lincolnshire County Council. Welcome to the stage, Colin.
Hiya. Well, I didn't realise I'd be standing here today. I've made no notes, I've not prepared, and I'm frightened to death. Thank you. One of the best nights of my life was on the 2nd of May. We won seat after seat after seat. The Conservatives, some of them, the lips were trembling, the skin went white. We knocked off some really key people who thought they were going to be the chairman and, this, that and the other in the council. I myself took on a very capable lady who'd had the job 32 years. 32 years. Beat her by 15 votes. All of the councillors, the UKIP county councillors, have worked really hard. They've worked their socks off. As you probably know, there's a lot of daytime work in county councils. All these committees and subcommittees and all the rest, and they've each contributed as much as they can into committee, coming out with some great ideas. Of course, the ruling Conservative Lib Dem coalition have sort of not allowed them through most of the time, but good ideas surface. And I've seen some really good ideas, a couple of months later, reappear as a Conservative idea, much as at national level. They're doing what people want because UKIP are supporting it. That's about all I've got to say, really, except we've got a big challenge in front of us, a huge challenge. Virtually all 16 of us who were lucky enough to be elected were self-financed, worked on leafleting virtually on our own. Half of us didn't know where the heck to start. And if we're really going to go for it, we need to think about a candidate's package, about candidate support, about making it easy for somebody to know where and how to get leaflets designed and printed, giving them support with leafleting. I mean, I financed myself, which included wearing out a pair of shoes. And they were good Clark's shoes as well. So, thank you very much, and I look forward to the following couple of years when I'm sure we're going to do great.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Colin Mayer, an excellent group leader for our group there in Lincolnshire. The next person I'd like to come up representing their group is from Norfolk County Council. And Toby Cook is the leader, but he has asked Paul Smythe to come along and represent their extraordinarily large county council group on that council.
Good afternoon or good evening. We're getting through shortly, are we? There was a fair criticism that could be laid at UKIP's door that we could not be trusted with votes for Westminster because we had no experience of government. After the 2nd of May, that accusation has been put to bed, and it has been consigned to history, not just in Norfolk but in other councils as well, and that now we have been entrusted by the people of the United Kingdom, or certainly England and Wales, with some form of government, which is critical to our progress towards Westminster. Now, in Norfolk, we have 84 county councillors. Of those 84, UKIP fielded, I think, 70 candidates. Of those 70, 50 came either first or second. We had 15 come first and 35 come second. If you compare that to the Greens, who you might remember prior to the election were sort of being viewed in the media in the same way as us, they put 50 candidates together, of whom 4 won and 3/4 came third, fourth, fifth or last. So we've done really well in Norfolk, and we've been entrusted by the people there to govern on their behalf. Now, that 84 used to be made up of 60 Conservative councillors in a domineering bloc. They fell from 60 at the election down to 40. Now, they attempted to form a minority administration, and we, rather than just saying no to everything, took a collaborative approach, and in partnership with councillors from Liberal Democrats, Labour and the Greens, have formed a transitional cabinet with a view to changing to a committee system of government in Norfolk. We have set ourselves 3 aims, and I've only got 2 minutes, so I'll be brief. We have set ourselves 3 aims in Norfolk. One is to represent the people of Norfolk. The second is to ensure that Norfolk County Council has UKIP councillors beyond 2017, which is the next election, and that we do what we can to promote our success in Westminster in 2015. And the way that we do that is to demonstrate to the people of Norfolk, who will vote in the forthcoming elections, that we can be trusted to govern because we govern well. And we do that through various means. We have 14 councillors now. We had 1 resignation and we didn't win the by-election. Those 14 councillors sit on various committees. They are known as overview and scrutiny panels. You think, is this important? Well, Norfolk, like other councils, is facing the result of Labour mismanagement and now Tory and Lib Dem austerity, so that in the next 3 years, we in Norfolk have to save £189 million. This will lead to, for example, in the council, job reductions, as they call them, of over perhaps 700 positions in those 3 years. So our councillors are intimately involved with the process to try and bridge that funding gap. We also, of course, by being in the chamber, can take part in motions. One of my colleagues who was here, I think he's still here, probably Matthew Smith, put a motion forward recently to try and raise the issue of the reduction or the change in free bus passes for children to get them to school. As it happened, it's an element that we are learning from, because the motion was carried, but it was an attempt to be hijacked by the Conservatives by amending it and then claiming the credit for it. So we learn, perhaps, we come at this obviously with a degree of political naivety. But the third thing, with regard to changing from a cabinet system where power is held by the 10 to a committee system, the Council of 84 has set up a working group which is 6 strong, has 3 Conservatives, previous cabinet members, the leader of the Lib Dem group, the deputy leader, I think she is, of the Labour group, and me. So we are involved intimately with the changes that the Council is embarking on. We have also honoured our privilege, or our pledges that we put down, that we would listen to the voices of local people. And for those of you who are not aware, in the northwest of Norfolk, there is quite a political issue over a building of a waste-to-energy incinerator. There was a local referendum. 65,000 people, I think it was, voted against it, some 90+%. We, particularly through Toby Cook and others who are representing the voters in the northwest of the county, have honoured our pledge to say that we will listen to the voices of local people and are actively trying to do something about stopping that incinerator. And finally, I'll just say that with 50 of us, out of the 70 doing well, there is obviously clear potential in Norfolk for us to do better in the future, and particularly with regard not only to the MEP elections, but to those in 2015. But we have to show that we can honour the trust that have been put in us by the voters. And hopefully we, like our colleagues elsewhere in the country, will be able to do that, and we will see progress in the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. And now to our largest county council group, down in Kent. They've sent along Mo Eleanor.
Kent County Council, 84 seat number. We stood 76 candidates. Most of those were paper candidates, including my good self. I was standing to make up the numbers. The husband had a target seat and I was out doing the honours for him, of course. However, come election day, we put out all the leaflets in the target seats, which didn't include most of the paper candidate seats. One nice little information we found on the internet prior to the election was that KCC was paying £360,000 per annum for an office in the EU. This was to facilitate an improvement in the grant system so they could get more money to spend on more things, most of which we didn't want. So this actually appeared in a leaflet or two. So, come election day, we got 17 firsts. In one area, we got 7 out of 8 seats. We got 42 seconds. So of the 76 candidates, we had 59 competing because a lot of those 42 second seats were 1 or 2 digit differences. So we have a lot to work for and a heck of a support in Kent. Shortly after we turned up, with the Tories looking as if they'd got quarters of lemons between their teeth, UKIP smiling left, right and centre, the office in the EU has been closed. We didn't mention that in council. Didn't have to. So we're not going to win any votes as far as I can see because we're numerically not able to. So we will be there convincing them that the way we look at things, our attitude and mindset is one they should take on board. Today I got a medal. This is not for my personal benefit. This is thank you to our members who pay their subs, the foot soldiers who go out and deliver the leaflets, and the voters who put us there, because without the voters, we need not bother to get up. We in Kent are mindful of the success we had, surprising though it was, and very pleasant, are launching our campaign for 2014 on the 4th of October with a public meeting in Gravesend, and if you can get there, you'll be very welcome. There are some flyers outside on the table in the foyer. To all of you who vote, who keep the party going, thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mo Eleanor, a fantastic county councillor representing both this party and her local community. The people who put her there are the people she's looking after, and they're doing a fantastic job down in Kent. Now, one of the things we do, now we have so many council groups, and I have to apologise to the many, many group leaders we have who we couldn't bring up on the stage today just because of time. We all get together and meet at the local government association offices. We plan and we structure our part of the party. And one of the things that came from the new infrastructure we're building around this huge new group of councillors that we've got is a project on anti-corruption. And to give us a flavour of what that project's all about, I'm pleased to introduce from Rutland our county councillor, David Richardson.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who do not know me, I am one of Nigel's infamous Rutland 3. And for those of you who still do not know me, I am one of 3 independent Rutland County councillors who joined UKIP in June of this year. Why infamous, may you ask? Well, we became the first councillors ever to be threatened to be taken to court by their own council for defamation under the Localism Bill. For nothing more than having the temerity to ask questions and call ourselves the Rutland Anti-Corruption Group. Apparently, by adopting such a name, we were implying the council was corrupt. Presumably, David Cameron, making Kenneth Clarke his anti-corruption champion, therefore implies the whole of the government is corrupt. Only time will tell. Unfortunately for Rutland Council, Lord McNally steps in and happened to point out that a council cannot sue an individual for defamation. So there was a change of tact. And next, the leader of our group had a criminal charge of harassment and stalking submitted against him by the chief executive. When, after 3 hours with 3 police detectives, the police determined they would not be following it up, we thought that would be the end of the matter. Wrong. The Conservative-led council then determined to authorise the engagement of lawyers at public expense up to the sum of £150,000 for the chief executive to pursue a personal defamation charge against us. Having endured all of this, trying to do nothing more than the best for a country we love and are proud, a country we believed upheld the very principles of democracy, we decided to join UKIP to afford some protection and to have a political party supporting us in our endeavours to do nothing more than reveal the truth. In our opinion, the current misuse and misappropriation of public money is an utter disgrace. UKIP was the obvious choice, as they supported the same ideals as ourselves, those of honesty, integrity, openness and transparency, along with upholding the fundamental principles of democracy. We believe, as does UKIP, that local government has to be returned to the people and must no longer rest with those bureaucrats working too closely with council leaderships. Bureaucrats who do nothing but use the tools of burdensome bureaucracy created by them to suit nothing more than their own agendas and interests, and most certainly not those of the people. Well, that was part of the press statement released on our joining UKIP, and lo and behold, Rutland Council threatened to sue UKIP as well for defamation. I'm afraid poor old Gawain didn't know what had hit him. This morning you heard about the Gulag. Well, I have to tell you, the Gulag's here. The European bureaucratic juggernaut is already in the very heart of England. I'm sure everyone will recognise the similarity of practices in this country, in local government, with those we despair of in Europe. Burdensome bureaucracy, squandering of millions of public money, total lack of openness and transparency, no accountability. That is why the fight has to now start here in this country before it is too late. If we are not careful, we will be fighting for a referendum to get out of Europe when Europe has already taken control of our national and local government. The aim must now be for UKIP to stand as the main political party against corruption in this country. The battlefield is already here, which is why we must mobilise and wrest back control of our councils first before it is too late. When our case made national media, we found ourselves being contacted by councillors from throughout the country with exactly the same problems, from as far as Scarborough, Monmouthshire, and even Mr. Pickle's own backyard of Brentwood. It was the same story up and down the country. Exempt information, having to make requests as councillors under the Freedom of Information Act, just to be told what's going on. and even then finding it denied or much of it redacted. Being accused of harassing officers and being reported to the police. Was this really democracy in our country? Councillors have become powerless and irrelevant, and they've been marginalised. That has to stop, and it is UKIP that must now unite all these councillors around the country who have made such a bold stance and are striving to uphold the fundamental principles of democracy. It must be UKIP that is not afraid to say we stand for anti-corruption in Europe and now, more importantly, here in the UK. We will not be intimidated by threats of harassment and defamation, and we must make it known that any councillor will be afforded full protection by UKIP, as we were, and is the only party that will make a stand against any form of corruption, a word that never was associated and never should be associated with this country, nor will it be with UKIP. Conservative and Labour councils no longer control councils in the interests of the people in this country. Instead, they control them in the interests of the bureaucrats and themselves. UKIP must now make it clear that it will wrest back control of the councils for the people of this country. That starts with mobilising now. We've heard about the elections next year. That means we've got to strive to ensure that UKIP get those 1,000 councillors next year and make the message clear. We are back in control of our country. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Councillor David Richardson, and he's very, very clear that UKIP is the party to save this country, and it genuinely is. It's now my pleasure not just to inform you that there are many of these projects that the council groups are working on, not just anti-corruption, but also fighting wind farms, which will be delivered to you, how to fight big housing estates that are being forced on communities, and also how to fight HS2. These plans are coming your way. And it's a real pleasure for me to introduce one of my best friends and one of the best councillors this party has, a triple councillor serving on town, district and county council, and a key and integral part of the campaign team. This is the man who set up and maintains our excellent My UKIP website, which helps inform us and keeps the communication together with all of our campaigns. Ladies and gentlemen, Councillor Chris Adams.
Hello, how are you all? I'm the original Chris Adams, by the way. I'm not Paul Nuttall and I'm not Pete Reeve. I've come to talk to you about HS2, which is slight hot potato. It's called High Speed Rail 2. And I'm just going to show you if we can get the slides working. Can we get to the next slide? Try again. It's not working. It doesn't take a woman either.
Damien, technical support, please. It's on its way. There's a man waving at me.
Hey, hey! Do you know this man? Well, to me, I think he is a complete bonkers, complete nutcase. Because a few months ago, as you can see here, HS2 is going to happen. I've been a strong supporter right from the start. The Conservative Prime Minister of this country absolutely destroying the landscape in the United Kingdom. What do you think about that? So we've already sent him a message. And those messages have been going up and down the country from London, Buckinghamshire, Northamptonshire, Warwickshire, Birmingham, and Staffordshire. That is the first, as they say, phase. So I got a little bit fed up. And I got this cartoon produced. And the man on the right-hand side here is quite a nice chap called Nigel Farage. You can see the 3 Wallies on the back of the train. You can see the chap waving a red flag. And what we're saying, this HS2 is not going to stop there. Phase 2, it's going to affect Leicestershire, Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, North Yorkshire. So what do we think about HS2? Well, we say no, ladies and gentlemen, to HS2. You might have seen an ad van with slightly large wording. Be careful how the camera takes the picture. Scrap HS2. The 3 old parties want to spend £50 billion, and it's going up every day, on one tray line. Well, what UKIP says is we say that money needs to improve the whole network for everybody. We also say it's a useless vanity project. What I would like to say, put a few of these bullet points in your minds from UKIP's point of view. The strategic benefits are basically unproven. It's not a low-carbon solution. It has a business case based on false assumptions. It will benefit very, very few at a time when great many are expected to suffer. Most of all, there is a party called the Green Party, but they don't seem to be very active, ladies and gentlemen. But UKIP is saying it will also cause environmental damage, especially of the areas of outstanding natural beauty up and down this country, all for 20 minutes saving and £50 billion. Can you believe it? It will not move much travel from planes or cars and assumes many more journeys. It will make our country more dependent on the London economy. It will increase energy consumption. It has alternatives, well, we have better alternatives that deliver greater benefits at less cost and less damage. It does not learn from the financial failure of Kent's HS1 project. It will crowd out crucial investment in transport, which is needed and beneficial. But Mr. Cameron basically ignores that the internet, which is changing the way in which we communicate and how mobile technologies enable people to work when travelling. I've got a very nice parliamentary seat, which is Aylesbury. My MP is the Europe Minister, David Liddington. When ministers cannot vote against HS2 because they are the Europe Minister, he's on a really sticky wicket. I've got something special to announce now. I've got someone special to come and speak to you about HS2. And it's my privilege now just to quickly hand out, to get a bit more meat on those bones, is a gentleman who is the national campaign organiser for Stop HS2, Mr. Joe Rukin.
Thank you very much, Chris, for that great introduction, and of course all the work that you've been doing on stopping HS2 in the last 2 years since I last addressed your conference. And my, how you've grown. Now, the way that the Stop HS2 campaign has been treated in the last few years is very similar to the way that UKIP gets treated, with unfounded, pejorative criticisms flying around when, as Nigel Farage said yesterday, opponents choose to play the man and not the ball. We've been called selfish, we've been called Luddites, we've been called liars. And I've lost count of the number of times when I've been asked, well, aren't you just a bunch of NIMBYs? To which the answer always is, no, we're a bunch of people who've been bothered enough to read the plans, to understand what is proposed, and to realise that this is an insane idea which isn't needed, which will bleed the country dry, and has only got this far because you've got a bunch of politicians who are not paying attention and a strong lobby from vested interests who will actually make money out of paying for what the politicians are calling their legacy. And you should be proud, because HS2 could have been added to the list of policies that Nigel read out yesterday, where UKIP have moved first, and now so many more politicians have followed. Some commentators have criticised the party because you did have high-speed rail in the last manifesto, but that's just lazy. You weren't proposing this. You weren't proposing HS2, and even if you were, it's not a crime to change your mind. And that's what we've seen in the last 2 years. Since UKIP has come out, you were followed by the Green Party and the Institute of Directors, the New Economics Foundation, the Adam Smith Institute, the Institute of Economic Affairs, and the National Audit Office and the Public Accounts Committee. All have been asking, what is going on here? And since those questioning HS2 have become more mainstream, we've seen a little bit of movement from the main parties, with a host of senior figures coming out against the project in the last few weeks, saying that they've changed their minds following you, because, to paraphrase John Maynard Keynes, it is right to change your mind when the facts change. With HS2, the facts have changed, or more rightly, the lies have been exposed, and you've led the way in the political sphere. What you have done is right. And what is wrong, and what we've seen from politicians who have to who've already spent too much political capital to defend the project, to change their minds now, is to stick their fingers in their ears and refuse to listen to any criticism whatsoever. The crescendo of questioning voices has led David Cameron to start a fight back in the last couple of weeks, without being able to accept the obvious. If HS2 was such a good idea, you wouldn't need a fight back. Now, the reason they need a fight back is that there was never any assessment of what was best for Britain's transport infrastructure. Before the last election, the great Euro-federalist Andrew Adonis was ennobled, stuck in as Transport Secretary, and he said, high-speed rail, we've got to have it. The French have it, the Germans have it, the Spanish have it, there's an EU directed to have it. 1996 TN-T directive. And, of course, it fits with the Euro-federalist concept of needing to create super cities. Like, let's be honest, why on earth would you plonk a station in Long Eaton if it's not to try and create developments to join up Nottingham and Derby? The HS2 Limited chief engineer said as much with the Birmingham Airport station, saying it would create a new city to join up Birmingham and Coventry. So anyway, there we were, 5 weeks before the 2010 general election, and the rationale was, we've got to have it. It was that simple. Oh, and it's got to be faster than any railway anywhere in the world. That was the brief. Lord Adonis had left a time bomb ticking in the DfT, and the coalition was stupid enough to pick it up. The reality is that when you look at the other countries in Europe, we're a smaller country and our bigger cities are closer together, and we already actually have high-speed rail. It's just that we don't call it high-speed rail. We call it the West Coast Main Line, the Great Western, the East Coast Main Line. We've had it since the 1970s. We don't need to catch up with the rest of the world. They are still catching up with us. But none of that matters. The decision had been made, and because the decision was made without any actual justification, the job was then to try and justify it. And to be honest, that's one of the great things with working in this campaigning against HS2. It's so easy to destroy the justifications because they were all made up after the fact. And that's why none of them fit. First, the coalition said it would be an environmental solution. We will develop a high-speed rail network as part of our vision for a low-carbon economy. But they failed to realise that the energy needed to get down to what was now being downgraded as 225 miles an hour, because we'd pointed out, you do realise there's no train in the world that does 250. And said, oh, we're future-proofing it. But anyway, to get to that speed, what you would need, just to get from London to Birmingham, 350 megawatts. Now, to put that into context, there are power stations in this country which do not produce that much electricity. And that's just to get from London to Birmingham. But of course, when you ask, where's all the electricity coming from? You get the answer, oh, we're the Department for Transport. What are you asking us for? And because of the speeds they've picked, it's got to run pretty straight, unless you can stick 600 million quid at it to put a handbrake turn around the richer parts of George Osborne's constituency. So it's got to run pretty straight. So 50 ancient woodlands are under threat. 350 wildlife sites are threatened. That is one for every mile of HS2. Then they moved on to say the justification was that it had a strong business case. Problem was it doesn't. It's been completely made up, and what we've seen is the benefit-cost ratio has been in free fall since the outset. The best bit of that is a huge proportion of the supposed £44 billion worth of economic benefit comes from the concept that no one works on a train. So if you've ever seen someone tapping away on a laptop or even with a pen and a bit of paper working on a train, you are wrong. It does not happen. That's what the Department for Transport say. So as a result, if you go faster, you can put a cash value on the time saved. Multiply that by the earnings of everyone on a train, 70 grand. Yes, everyone on a train earns 70 grand a year. And then you multiply that by a grossly inflated passenger forecast, and you get tens of billions pounds worth of economic benefit. This was picked up by the Public Accounts Committee, and they couldn't have been more critical, with gems like, I wish you guys were honest. Isn't this going to be a high-speed sucking service? Your business model is from the field of dreams. Build it and they will come. You've given the process of forecasting passenger demand to people with vested interests in building this. And of course, the best one, your assumptions do not reflect real life. But therein is the problem. The mainstream leaders do not care about reality. What is the point of having the Public Accounts Committee or the National Audit Office if ministers are going to respond to their well-founded criticisms by saying, we don't recognise you, we don't recognise anything that you're saying, fingers in ears for the sake of their vanity. And we wonder why this country is in a mess. We've seen the argument that we need HS2 to catch up with the rest of the world, oddly enough by promoting a 19th century solution to a 20th century problem in the economy. Looking around the world, ultra-high-speed lines have had all the same problems. They have been financial basket cases, like in Kent, because the passenger numbers that were used to justify the need for their construction never turned up. HS2 was then touted as a magic wand to cure the north-south divide. But again, all of that international evidence shows that high-speed rail lines drag economic activity to the capital. HS2 will not heal the north-south divide, but it'll be a hammer and chisel to turn it into a chasm, sucking more stuff to London. If you go to Seville, you will see the Expo, the big venue that was set up to promote Seville 20 years ago when high-speed rail was built. It's boarded up. There's padlocks on the door. It did not work. More stuff went to Madrid. Anyway, now the public are strongly cottoning on to this. Back in January, the YouGov polling showed a tight 44% against, 42% for building HS2. Now, that's gone to 55% against, with only 29% for. And this month, the Institute of Economic Affairs, the Campaign to Protect Rural England, and the Institute of Directors weighed in. The Institute of Directors said their members didn't want it. CPRE said that the environmental destruction and disruption would be greater than imagined. And the Institute for Economic Affairs said that the total bill, which officially stands at £50 billion, when those promoting HS2 have the decency to add in the cost of trains, as you may have heard 42.6 being used, doesn't include trains. Building a train line, think you want a couple of trains for that. But anyway, the Institute for Economic Affairs said that the cost would come at 80 billion because there's a load of stuff that hasn't been added in. The Treasury, a couple of days later, came up with 73 billion. And oddly enough, they came up with those figures in completely different ways. Oddly enough, not even adding the cost of financing the project. You know, going to have to get loans for it. What's that going to cost? Neither of them even looked at that. So who knows where this will spiral up to? The best one, then, was that to rebut the idea that this cost will continue to spiral, there was an open letter signed by 8 heads of construction firms promising that HS2 would come in on budget. The problem was they forgot to mention that 2 of them were already over budget. And that's on design work that cost millions, not construction work that cost billions. So what we've had since is, besides this, the government are now very much on the ropes. Their fight back is coming, and it's going to say that it's all about wider economic benefits. Everything else has been discredited, more or less. So now £15 billion of economic benefits have been magicked up from nowhere. KPMG have been reported, a bit more rightly, been paid £250,000 to report that HS2 will be worth £15 billion of the year to the economy. KPMG, the same KPMG that couldn't find a £1.5 billion hole in the Co-op's accounts, were paid that money and invented a brand new methodology. It's not cooking the books, it's completely rewriting them. And of course, the other thing they forgot to mention was that in 2010, they wrote a report saying that HS2, same KPMG, wrote a report saying that HS2 will cost jobs in East Anglia, the East Midlands, the South East, the West Country, and Wales, because it doesn't create them, it just moves them around. So when the updated business case comes out in October, more random numbers will be picked to go in front of 1,000 jobs and £1 billion worth of benefits. The way that it's going, if a new burger van was to turn up on a match day at Old Trafford, it'll be because of HS2. And then we've got a few emotive phrases. So David Cameron said we have to think big and we should emulate the Victorians, conveniently forgetting how many Victorian railway engineers went bust. And of course, the fact they were taking over canals. And in the Victorian age, most people were able to walk to work because there were jobs in their community. And if we actually invested in 21st century technology, that might actually enable more people to work in their communities. The other argument being touted now is capacity. In fact, now it's always been about capacity. You can search a myriad articles in 2010 and not find one use of that word. But the thing is, there are cheaper, quicker ways of providing capacity that will deliver more benefits to more people. The government will stick with forecasts saying the West Coast Main Line will be full, despite the fact this relies on an outdated methodology that has been chucked in the bin because it overestimates long-distance travel and is only used to justify HS2. They'll ignore the fact that the building east-west will create a new path from Milton Keynes into London to increase capacity. Or indeed, that First Group's bid document for the West Coast Main Line franchise said the West Coast Main Line franchise is unique because of the extra capacity, unreleased capacity it holds. And of course, freeing up capacity means that some cities losing the trains you already have. 32 cities like Coventry, Stoke, Aberdeen, Leicester would lose services to London, have slower services to London, or have no services to London at all if HS goes ahead. But we have blind politicians promoting the white elephant, and they don't want to hear that. So, thing is that HS2 will suck up investment in the railway line for years, meaning the rest of the network continues to face crush-hour conditions. Now, no matter how flawed their reasoning is, they will stick with these arguments because they have nowhere else to go. They will even say HS2 is needed for freight, even though it can't carry freight. But eventually, the wheels will fall off that wagon too. The argument is simple. HS2 is the wrong thing to do, and it's a train crash waiting to happen. And I hope you are with us in the fight to make sure it eventually derails. Thank you.